My aunt told my boss I had a criminal record to get me fired. She said, she doesn't deserve that job. I sued her for defamation and won. Now she's paying me every month. I had always thought Aunt Moira was a little intense, but I didn't think she'd go out of her way to ruin my life. She was my mother's younger sister, though the two of them couldn't have been more different. While my mom had a kind, gentle disposition, Moira was loud, brash, and always itching for a fight. My mom once said, "You know, Moira's just had a hard life, Fiona. She's just complicated." Complicated was putting it nicely. Moira was the type to hold a grudge over something as small as someone cutting her off in traffic. Growing up, I heard story after story about Moira's wars. She'd go after neighbors, store clerks, even random people at church, calling them out if she felt slighted in the slightest way. I remember overhearing her yell at our poor babysitter once, saying, "Don't think you're better than me just because you're in college. I could have done that, too, you know." The girl looked terrified. But I never thought Moira's grudge holder ways would turn on me, especially not for something as simple as being happy. I was living in Boston, building a quiet life I was proud of. I'd spent my 20s working as an editor at a respected publishing house in the North End, clawing my way up from a junior assistant to a full editor over the last 5 years. It was my dream job, something I'd worked so hard for. I loved the feeling of flipping through manuscripts, marking passages, helping writers polish their stories. I'd even gotten close to my boss, Caroline Rivers, who was like a mentor to me. She had a sharp eye and a blunt sense of humor, and she always encouraged me to trust my instincts. Everything was going well. I'd recently been up for a promotion to senior editor, a position I'd wanted for years. My friends kept joking about how I'd be Fiona, senior editor soon, and I could practically taste the celebratory dinner we'd planned at this little Italian place I loved by the waterfront. I was ready. Or at least, I thought I was. The day it all fell apart was a Friday afternoon. I'd just finished a meeting with one of our authors when Caroline, who'd been walking briskly down the hall, stopped at my desk and gave me a strange look. Her usual warm, casual demeanor was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite read, something cold, cautious. "Fiona, can I see you in my office for a moment?" "Sure," I said, trying to hide my nervous excitement. Was this it? Was this the big promotion? My hands were slightly sweaty as I followed her, trying to steady my breathing. But when I stepped into her office, I knew right away something was wrong. Caroline's face was stone-cold serious as she shut the door behind me. She sat down at her desk, not looking at me right away, and then pulled a slim manila folder from the drawer. She placed it between us, tapping it slightly with her fingers. "Fiona, I'm not even sure how to start this conversation." That's when the cold feeling settled in my stomach. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Caroline sighed, opening the folder. "Someone called anonymously," she said slowly. "They claimed that we had employed someone with a violent criminal record." My heart stopped. "Wait, what?" She continued, looking uncomfortable. "We have to investigate every report that comes in, you understand. For liability reasons. So, HR did some digging, and, she gestured for me to look down at the folder. I looked at the papers inside, my vision blurring as I took in the words, assault. Battery. I scanned the document with my name on it, dated back 5 years. The accusation claimed I'd been in a physical altercation in another state. "Caroline, this isn't me. I swear, I don't even have a speeding ticket." I was trying to sound confident, but my voice was shaking. Caroline held up a hand. "I believe you, Fiona. But someone made this call, and these documents exist under your name. We have no choice but to verify." "Verify?" I choked out. I didn't do anything. Who would even? Then it hit me. A sickening realization washed over me. There was only one person I could imagine pulling something like this. Caroline seemed to read something in my face and raised an eyebrow. "You have an idea of who might have done this?" I couldn't bring myself to say it, but after a long, tense silence, I nodded. I think my aunt might have done this." Caroline tilted her head, visibly trying to understand. "Your aunt?" "Yes. She has a history of this kind of thing. Petty revenge, holding grudges, she's complicated," I said, echoing my mother's words with a bitter taste in my mouth. Caroline sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I want to trust you, Fiona. I really do. But until we can confirm that this is a mistake, we need to pause your promotion consideration. I'll be in touch, but please know this investigation may take a little while." I felt like the floor had fallen out from under me. I walked out of Caroline's office in a daze, barely processing the world around me. My dreams of that senior editor title, that hard-won success, felt like they were slipping away right in front of my eyes, replaced with shame and confusion. That night, I went home and immediately called my mother. "Mom," I started, my voice thick with emotion, Did you tell Aunt Moira about my promotion? Mom hesitated, and I could practically hear her face creasing in worry over the phone. Well, yes, Fiona. We were talking a few weeks back, and I mentioned you were doing well at work. She seemed happy for you. Why do you ask? I took a shaky breath. Because she's trying to destroy me. I don't know how, but she found a way to fabricate a police report and call my job. Mom, I think she wants me to lose everything. My mom went silent. Then, after a long pause, she whispered, Fiona, are you sure? That sounds. I mean, she's family. I laughed bitterly. That's exactly what she counts on us believing, isn't it? Over the next week, I tried calling Moira, but every attempt went straight to voicemail. I even considered driving out to her apartment in Providence, but every time, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I knew she'd lie, manipulate me, maybe even gaslight me into thinking I'd done something to deserve this. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I got a call from Lyle, Moira's son. Lyle was in law school, a level-headed guy who'd managed to steer clear of his mother's drama. Fiona, can we talk? He said, his voice sounding tense, almost fearful. Yeah, sure, I replied, relieved to have someone to talk to. When we met up at a cafe near Harvard Square, Lyle looked exhausted. He stared into his coffee cup for a long time before he finally spoke. Look. My mom has been saying some things, he started, hesitating. What kind of things? He swallowed. She's been bragging to people that she taught you a lesson. Something about how you don't deserve that job and how you're too arrogant. She was drunk, Fiona. And I overheard her telling her friend that she made some calls. Made sure you'd have a wake-up call. The blood drained from my face. So? She admitted it? Lyle nodded, looking down. I'm sorry, Fiona. I don't know why she's like this. I wish I could stop her, but she's always been complicated, I finished, a harsh edge in my voice. That evening, as I stared out the window at the Boston skyline, the anger burned in me like a slow fire. Moira thought she could control me, keep me in my place through manipulation. She thought she could stomp all over my life, tear down everything I'd built, and get away with it. I clenched my fists, the rage simmering as I thought about the years I'd watched her manipulate others, the countless bridges she'd burned. I was done being a pawn in her twisted game. The days after meeting Lyle were a blur. My mind ran through every scenario, every possible action I could take to make things right. The betrayal felt bone deep. Moira had made me question my own life, my own worth, and the career I'd worked so hard to build. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was determined. The next day, I called my lawyer, Liam Sullivan. Liam had handled minor legal issues for me before, but this was on a whole new level. As soon as I explained the situation, he went quiet. Fiona, this is serious, he said finally, his voice grim. If what you're saying is true, and we can prove it, you could have a defamation case. But we'll need concrete evidence, especially since she tried to harm your reputation at work. Do you think your cousin Lyle would testify? I felt a glimmer of hope. Yes, I think he would. He's fed up with her too, Liam. He overheard her admitting it, and he's as disgusted as I am. Liam gave a long, thoughtful sigh. All right. We're going to move forward. But be prepared, cases like these take time. And family cases? They get ugly. Ugly didn't begin to cover it. When Moira received the notice, she went ballistic. I hadn't heard from her directly, but family members started blowing up my phone. They all had something to say. Some were horrified by Moira's actions and supported me. Others claimed I was being cruel, that I should just let it go. One cousin, who'd always been close to Moira, sent me a particularly nasty text, "You're tearing the family apart. She's your aunt, Fiona. Family doesn't do this to each other." Family doesn't do this to each other? I laughed bitterly at the irony. The legal process was exhausting. There were depositions, calls with Liam, and tense family gatherings where I could feel the weight of everyone's judgment. My mother begged me to reconsider, to settle things privately. I knew she was torn, she wanted peace, but she also understood that I needed to stand up for myself. At one point, I thought about dropping it. But then I'd remember the humiliation, the hours in Caroline's office, staring down at that bogus police report, feeling my dreams slip away. And that memory gave me strength to keep going. When the court date finally arrived, I was ready. Moira looked unrecognizable sitting at the defendant's table, trying to play the part of the wounded, misunderstood aunt. She wore a conservative black dress, her hair styled neatly, and a face of fake remorse that almost made me laugh. I knew that look. She'd used it all her life to manipulate people, to make them see her as the victim. But not this time. Lyle took the stand, and his testimony was more powerful than I could have hoped. He detailed the drunken night he'd overheard Moira bragging, how she laughed about teaching Fiona a lesson. He described how she'd been proud of creating a fake police report and calling my job. There was a hush in the courtroom, the weight of his words settling on everyone like a thick fog. When it was my turn to speak, I told the court about the impact her actions had on my career, my mental health, my relationships. I didn't hold back. I explained the anxiety I'd felt every time I walked into my office, wondering if my coworkers saw me as a criminal, wondering if I'd ever shake this dark cloud she'd thrown over my life. I explained the sleepless nights, the endless questioning of why someone, family, would want to ruin me. Moira's lawyer tried to defend her, saying it was just a misunderstanding, that she meant no harm. But with Lyle's testimony and the evidence of the fake police report, the truth was clear. Moira's malice was unmistakable. Finally, after days of deliberation, the judge ruled in my favor. I was awarded monthly restitution payments to cover the damages to my reputation and career. It wasn't a massive amount, but it was something. Moira was also ordered to send a written apology to my employer, clearing up the damage to my name. As we left the courtroom, Moira glared at me, her face twisted with fury. She looked like she was about to say something, but I didn't give her the satisfaction of a conversation. I simply turned and walked away, feeling the weight of years of manipulation and bitterness lifting off my shoulders. Months passed, and I began to heal. My job was safe, Caroline reinstated my promotion, and I found myself thriving in ways I hadn't before. Every month, a check would arrive from Moira. And every month, I'd smile as I deposited it, a small token of justice that reminded me of my strength. One afternoon, I received a call from Lyle. "I just wanted to say I'm proud of you, Fiona," he said. It took a lot of guts to stand up to her. Most people would have backed down. "Thanks, Lyle," I said, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't do it alone. We both laughed, and in that moment, I realized I had gained something far more valuable than money or a promotion. I had regained control over my own life, my self-respect, and my belief that sometimes, fighting back is the only way to move forward. And as for Moira? Well, she got exactly what she deserved.